You're listening to Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, certified behavior consultant for canines, and certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. So, continuing on from our last podcast, I want you to think about starting today. Just adding some things to your grooming or to your training, but this is more for the groomers right now. But I want you to think about adding calmness. And I've broken down calm into 3 steps. So the first step is to start with calm. Start with what they're comfortable with and then work on expanding their comfort zone. It's a different way of looking at it. Like, okay, well, what are you calm with? What can we work on that you are calm with, and be able to backtrack to calm and be able to work on just being calm together and getting things done. Most dogs have a few things that they're just fine with. Maybe it's brushing on their shoulder, not brushing all together, like brushing a face or brushing their backside might be tricky for them. But to figure out what they're calm with so that you can backtrack to it throughout a grooming session. And if the dog is freaking out just walking through the door, this isn't going to be a perfect trim day. We talked about that in the last podcast, that I want you to have a safety policy and have customer expectations in line with, we don't do beautiful, perfect trims on dogs with behavior problems. Instead, we work on the behavior problem for the health and happiness of your dog. So if you have a dog who is already not calm, then you would work on trying to get them calm. And then work on, just keeping them calm as best we can. So step 2 is to maintain calm. And why that's important is because I want them to have this feeling that nothing pushed past what they could handle. And it's not going to be perfect. We all have dogs that end up losing their calm. I would love to say that it never happens, but it does. But when they do get scared, we're going to return them to calm, right? Like, oh, okay, you got a little bit worked up there. Let's calm down again. It might seem like it's a whole ton of work to keep a dog calm and you're not getting much grooming done, but circle back to our safety policy. I'm going to keep beating you guys over the head with the safety policy. That's when we all get hurt. Groomers get hurt, dogs get hurt, equipment gets broken, customers get ticked off because now their dog is hurt and they don't understand why, right? So we're going to circle back to keeping a dog calm for future groomings being easy. Future groomings are going to be easy if we take the time to train it. So maintaining calm means to stop once in a while they're relaxed, stop and backtrack and go to something else. And I know that can be a little bit hard to do. Sometimes you're like, oh shoot, did I do his bum? Like I do things in a particular order and it's messing up the order I do things in. And that can be tricky. I get that, but this is sort of a training thing. So be thinking about, all right, do I need to have a little chart beside me to check off that, I did the nails on the right front paw, but I haven't done all of the nails yet. That's how I actually started doing this. It's like, okay, I'm going to lose track of where I am on this dog, trying to maintain their calm and, not necessarily get that 4th nail. Because that always seems to be the thing. It's like, they're on the last foot and the last nail and they're like, I can't handle it anymore. Nobody's ever made me do something for this long. So when we get them to be calm again, what we've actually done is let them get worked up and then calm down again. I would like instead for them to remain calm and we stop and start up. Instead of that point where they're like, I can't take it, right? So if I'm doing a new dog, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do this paw. And I kept you calm. Great. Go back to something I know you're comfortable with. And I'm going to do this paw. And you were able to stay calm. Great. I'll stop there and do something you're good at. Because we don't want it to be, I get upset, you stop. I want them to start thinking, if I want them to stop, being calm might work. Ooh, that's kind of cool, right? Like, hey, if I'm really calm, sometimes they stop and just pet me. Sometimes they stop and just, go back to something I like. Or maybe even give treats, which we'll talk about in future podcasts. But, treats can be really awkward to use in a grooming shop. Many dogs won't take them on the table, so I'm not super treat heavy when I'm talking about how to just work on calm. I know a lot of trainers are like, why aren't you using treats? But as groomers, we know we have a hand on the dog, we have a hand on a tool. We don't have extra hands for like clickers and treats and right. So we're going to keep it basic with just using a groomer's two hands and not sprout more arms. So when we're working on maintaining calm, then we're getting a dog to think, oh, that wasn't so bad. She never pushes me to the point that I can't handle. Right? That's maintaining calm. And to end on calm doesn't necessarily mean the entire grooming session ends on calm, but everything that we do ends on calm. Right? So if a dog is trying to hold their leg still for me while I'm picking it up to, I don't know, clip her around a sanitary area, right? If they're calm, that's where we'll end. Hey, that was really good. Nice job. I might not go for the next leg if I know that that's their particular challenge, right? And not do the other side. Again, a little check sheet. Did half of the sanitary on the right side, go back to the left. Now I can keep track of those things because I'm in the habit of keeping track of like the millions of different pauses that I have taken. But adding those pauses is really important for helping them maintain calm. All right, so the 3 steps of calm, again, we're going to start with calm, figure out what their comfort zone is, figure out what they can handle, maintain calm. We're going to stop once in a while they're being calm. Don't worry about, oh, he's being so good, I've just got to get this done. No, maintain calm. Back off, move forward, back off, move forward, because it creates multiple repetitions. And we're going to end on calm. Like, dude, the last thing you do was calm, and that's great. And maybe we'll put you back in the crate, take you out again. If you're in a grooming shop, as a house call groomer, I have no option to do that. I'm pretty much start to finish. Once you let a dog on the floor of their house, you're probably not getting them like back focused again. It's very, very different at home. But, to be able to end on calm with multiple steps, like, okay, and then I'm going to turn off the dryer, or I'm going to turn off the grinder, or I'm going to move the brush away from you. You can be calm and I'll stop. You don't have to freak out. You don't have to growl at me. You don't have to cry. You don't have to jump around. And while we're doing this too, I want you to think about sometimes a dog will throw us very, very small, subtle skills and asking to us to stop, right? So sometimes they're doing this like, what if I just wiggle a little bit? And you know what? Yeah, I reward that. I'll stop if they give me something so polite, something very, very small, because in the end, they're learning, oh, she did listen. I don't need to do anything dramatic, because some of what we're seeing with dogs that are bad for grooming is drama. Like, I am over the top, right? If I can get a dog to just give me like a slight little wiggle to tell me, I'm kind of losing my balance here while you've got my leg up. Yeah, I'm going to encourage that, because as they learn more, then we say, well, sorry, dude, I'm going to keep finishing here. Like later when they are more comfortable with the whole process, we can teach them more about how much we need to do. But starting with calm, maintaining calm, ending calm, that's what I'm calling the 3 steps of calm. I know. It's going to sound so easy, and then we're going to go, wait a minute, you got to be kidding me. That can't possibly work. So will this work on dogs who are spoiled rotten at home, dogs who are really pushy, dogs who are afraid or had a bad experience or are very dominant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? The thing is that, yes, it will. And we're going to get into that stuff in the next part, because all of those various things are the stories that we add to behaviors that we observe. So we're going to talk about subjective and objective in the next part. Let's talk about dogs who are bad for grooming, dogs who hate it, dogs who are scared of everything, dogs who are rescues or abused or had a bad experience or spoiled at home. Those are all subjective. They're all stories based on things that you observed. And the observations are really what's important in changing behavior. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what subjective and objective data are. So stories are subjective, and that means that they're how an individual interprets what they observe. And interpretations can vary wildly. One person might see a dog who is nervous, and another person might see a dog who is angry, or, that what they're observing is being interpreted through words that they're familiar with or through their own point of view. But the data that we really need if we want to do a training plan, if we want to help them be more comfortable with something, is we need to know, well, what are we looking at? What did we actually see? Observations are objective data. So they're what an individual can see with their eyes, hear with their ears, touch with their hands. They give us key details about the behaviors so that we can make a plan. And what I mean by that is the dog shaking and pulling away? Is the dog lunging forward and growling? Those are behaviors that we observe. Right? Or is the dog trying to pull out of my hand? Is the dog relaxed in my hand? Those are things that I can feel with my hand. I might interpret that as the dog is happy because he's not trying to pull away and he's calm in my hand, but that's still an interpretation, right? It's okay for us to make up interpretations and to use subjective stuff. Certainly you're going to hear me say things like when a dog freaks out, because we do talk about those. We talk in that way. That's kind of the human dialogue. But to be a little bit more scientific is to be objective and say, well, what did you see? All right. When a customer comes to us and say he hates it when I touch his feet, we usually ask, well, what exactly does he do? Right. And when a groomer tells me that they're working with a dog who is terrible for the dryer, I also ask, what does the dog do? Because what the dog does is going to lead us to some sort of a solution. Does the dog freak out when you turn on the dryer? Or does the dog freak out when the air blows on their coat? Or does the dog freak out when the air blows on their coat near their ears? Those are very, very different things. If we just say he hates the dryer, we might be trying to help him with a problem he doesn't have. So for instance, if he doesn't freak out when he hears a dryer turn on, then we don't need to work on that part. We need to work on the feeling of the dryer in a particular area so we can be more specific and save ourselves a ton of time. And that's really what I'm looking for. Like, let's all just save some time, right? Trainers do it too. So it's not just groomers doing it, but trainers do it too. They're like, oh yeah, it must be the loud noise. Dogs are afraid of loud noises. But I got to say, I find that that's an assumption too. That's part of a story that we think up because we're thinking, well, what I have observed in the past or what my experience has been or what others have told me. But if we take a look at the face and the body language and what we're actually seeing is sometimes they're not afraid of a noise. Many of our house pets, these are house pets. My dogs can sit through an Avengers movie in the living room at full volume. They're not afraid of sound. So I can tell you that, many of our dogs are okay with watching a football game and can hear noises and not freak out. So for us to assume is bad too, or to assume that because this dog is a rescue and afraid that he must have had a bad experience. That means that we don't have any data yet. We're making an assumption. But if we look at what he does, because it could be that a rescue dog doesn't have any experience. They're totally overwhelmed, which is actually more often the case. They're like, what is happening here? I've never been around this atmosphere, So we need to know what it is that we're seeing and be better at picking out those details, right? Like, what did you observe? Groomers, I find, observe things that others don't necessarily see. Your grooming eye is really, really strong. Trainers, in fact, I talk to trainers about you should probably, if you want to learn more about body language, see about helping out at a grooming shop a little bit. Because groomers get that faster because we're actually reaching into crates to put leashes on dogs that we don't know, that we really don't have much of a history on. We're taking an owner's word for it. Like, oh yeah, they said at the last grooming shop he was always good, when we moved and blah, 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 We don't know that dog. And we're going to touch him all over. And as groomers, we see those little signs, the sharpness in an eye, a little bit of a body stiffen, that are very subtle, that we're catching on to. And if we keep in mind that those are observations, those are objective data that we can really use to say, okay, well, what exactly is this dog worried about? What exactly is this dog calm with? Then we can work on helping a dog become more comfortable with something that they're uncomfortable with. Instead of going through, I often hear people saying, oh yeah, you need to counter condition, desensitize them to dryers. But that's still too vague for me. which part of drying, or counter condition and desensitization to nail trimming, but which part of nail trimming. We can have more accuracy and save ourselves a whole lot of time. A whole lot of time. It's all about the time, right? And make faster progress if we take the time to observe what we are seeing. What exactly are we seeing? What did I see with my eyes? What did we all in the room look at and see with our eyes? What did we feel in our hands? What did we smell? What did we hear? Because those details are real. Those are concrete details. And then the subjective data is interpretations of those. So the interpretations can be useful. I often use them to help relay information to, say, customers, the owner. Like, well, he was a little bit fidgety about this because I think he was worried, but I'm basing it on he started to get a little bit wiggly when I was turning on the dryer, so I backed off and I turned it off. I'm basing it on he was wiggly, he started to pant, or he started to circle on the table. We have a variety of ways that we can look at those behaviors. But let's backtrack and think about, what do we actually see? So when they say a dog hates it when, what does he do? What does he do that's very important? Is he trying to get away? Is he trying to attack? Is he willing to fling himself off the table to his death? What is the dog doing? All right. What do we observe? And how long does it take him to calm down if something does freak him out? Those things are important too, So objective and subjective data are part of more of a behaviorist training point of view, but I think that it's very, very useful for everybody. It's something that I teach my training customers about. I'm in a customer's home with the average dog owner, and I'm teaching them that too. Like, what exactly did the dog do when you left? Like, what exactly does he do? Because then you can also track progress. What exactly did he do when you left today versus what he was doing last week? Because tracking progress also requires an objective point of view instead of, well, he's still really spoiled at home. What does that mean? Right? That could mean a million things to a million different people. So when we want to be accurate and we want to be able to really look at the behavior in front of us, because that's what we're working on, is the behavior in front of us on the dog we have today. Then we can track how well they're doing, if they're making progress, if they're not making progress, and those are all for future episodes. There are lots of ways to track that. But I want you to be thinking about the times that you describe a behavior through a subjective story versus the times when you're really observing it and taking a look at what you see. So I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. In fact, this is something that I find takes a while for us to wrap our minds around. It took a while for me. And so give me examples if you'd like, or maybe I can post something on the Facebook group for Creating Great Grooming Dogs on Facebook, and just come up with some examples for us to go, hey, which one of those are subjective and which ones are objective, so that we can hone our skills even more. Because I know you dog people are seeing stuff, hearing stuff, touching stuff, feeling stuff that you're interpreting sometimes inaccurately. So it is very, very common in training to have to really work on your skills for being an observer and to watch behavior. And I know you've got it in you and you can do it. And it's going to be so helpful for you when you're able to recognize when you've created a story versus when you have looked at something kind of in a more scientific way, when you have observed it and I saw this, and then think, how can I help the dog with the thing that I saw? For any of you out there who are looking for some one-on-one help, we have these wonderful devices in our pockets, these phones that we can do live video with each other. I can definitely set up a lesson with you with the dog that you're having trouble with right there on your table and be able to guide you through some of this stuff. Definitely reach out and let me know. I am at Chrissy@happycritters.net. Certainly you can find me through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook group. And we can definitely set up times to work on these things together because you might be surprised how much I can do for you live, where we're actually looking at each other, being able to observe what you're seeing, helping guide you, or even showing you on a dog over here on this end of video. So there are ways for us to help each other. There are ways to learn this from a distance.